Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Brea, Season 2, Episode 9. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we find ourselves in a little bit of a murder mystery type of situation going on here, where Wyatt ends up dead. It's like, oh, cool, we gave Wyatt that screen time last episode, got fully introduced to him. It's like, hey, I'm the coach. Oh, he's dead. Oh, cool. Oh, and he was super murdered. So it's like, okay, so who did it? Immediately you're like, okay, it's got to be Talmud. And even Scott was thinking that because he saw the symbol that Wyatt had drawn. And so he immediately knew that, but he couldn't tell anyone why he immediately knew that. Because it's also like, why would you recognize that? You wouldn't have been like, it's a detail you would have. I mean, I guess it's like, it's a small enough detail no one would have really noticed. But it's like, you got so close up and personal to him. You saw him. Well, I think he picked something up that had that symbol on it. And when he left after he, like Scott set him free. So I think that's probably why. Because you would think someone else would have noticed that symbol too. But apparently not. It's just being a little indicative of, considering the circumstances, I guess Scott was just a little more observant in that regard. Either way, now it's a question of like, well, who actually did it? And I love that we've got Lucas going full-blown cop here, where he's like, oh yeah, like obviously he wasn't stabbed here. And Gavin's like, how you know that? It's like, well, the branches are broken, the scuffs at the bottom of the shoes. It's like, dude, both of my parents were cops. I was like, I mean, I guess it also makes sense too, considering like, right, that cop gene is in you. You kind of grew up around it. Plus, as a criminal, you probably get very good at seeing things from a cop's perspective in that regard as well. So I think that kind of plays into it as well. But then there's also the aspect of him and Scott playing like asking people questions. Like, I love that one of the people they interviewed first is Judah, and he's just like, all right, I know who's actually behind this. They're like, who? He's like, the Illuminati. They're like, Judah. He's like, all right, I see how that doesn't work for you. The Knights Templar, they're just like, just get out of here. It's like, well, glad to see Judah still annoying, which I love that. I'm like, I love that this guy's getting, like, he got, like, some scenes here and there in season 1, but I love that he's kind of just, like, the annoying dude to just like pop up. Once again, we never heard his name in the first season, and they're making more of a point to make him a background character, a recurring character. I love it. It's just like, what are you talking about, dude? Talking about the Illuminati. Bro, we're in 10,000 BC. I guess maybe he's implying that someone here at the clearing is connected to the Illuminati or the Knights Templar. I don't know. But it does kind of tie into something, interestingly enough, that Lucas said. Obviously, that's him going all very conspiracy theorist. But Lucas does bring up the point of like, yeah, we're together here, but do we really know that much about each other? It's like, not really. Especially like someone like Virgil, who ended up being a suspect because, which I even love that he kind of, Lucas chastised Sam for moving the body to do kind of a makeshift autopsy. But it's also like, dude, you shouldn't have moved the body. That's destroying evidence. Once again, it's like, I think your mom would actually be super proud of you. It is kind of sad, like, yeah, when a murder comes up, you don't have an actual cop, but you have Lucas who's got the next best thing. Because as the criminal who, once again, still kind of knows how a cop thinks, plus growing up around it, he knows enough that he does have the right instincts for it, especially considering they're trying to put him in a leadership role. So, which even, Sam talked to him about the fact is of like, yeah, you have to kind of make some hard decisions that it's always going to be, there's going to be difficult choices that you're going to have to make as a leader if that's the position you're going to be in. And it is interesting how they have set Lucas up. And I brought this up previously of like, yeah, like in parallel to like, once again, all the main characters, which Lucas is one of the main characters too, but just like all the main characters who make a lot of the decisions are gone, and like it kind of fell on Lucas, and now it kind of puts him at odds with the other groups because, yeah, they, as I brought up continuously last episode, I kept using the word unilateral because there were so many unilateral decisions that you didn't involve the rest of the squad in, because it's like, oh, we don't have enough time, and we don't have the kind of enough time to put this up for debate and kind of drawing everyone in. It was a small timetable, which, to be fair, I'm kind of dealing a little bit of the fallout with that this episode, but we'll get to that. But either way, Lucas does kind of end up suspecting Virgil, who didn't have a real alibi. So, plus, it's like, oh yeah, like I got hurt during the stampede. He's like, dude, I saw you after the stampede. You weren't hurt. It's like, oh, also, what happened to your hand? He didn't, because he also lied about that. So it's like, Lucas was right to be like, yeah, there's something suspicious about this guy. Once again, that might not even just be a cop aspect. That might just be well, I'm a criminal. Shady recognize shady, so that could be the implications in that regard. But when the knife shows up and it's like, oh, like, nah, this has the symbol on it. This was found near, like, Ty and Izzy ended up finding it with a whole bunch of blood. So it's like, oh, this is most likely where Wyatt got stabbed. So obviously, like this, and now it's like, okay, so he might have nothing to do with it. So he had locked Virgil up for a little bit, but Scott went to Sam with his concerns, and Sam's like, right, you got the wrong person, so let him go. And Lucas kind of apologizes to him later, but you can tell him like he's got that look like, I don't know, man. I guess he was kind of like, well, I guess that's all this conversation is going to be. I guess I'll just walk away. That's kind of the look, but he also had that look of almost like, I'm keeping an eye on you. I think something's still off about you. I don't think he's fully let that go. And the ending kind of indicates maybe he was right. Who knows? Either it's indicative of either he's still working for Tama. That's why he did what he did, because Tama, rather than getting his hands dirty, like maybe he has some kind of hold over Virgil. Because Virgil says like he wants to get back to his wife. That might be the key factor. The fact that they dropped that, because even Lucas is like, wait, I didn't know you were married. He says like, yeah, he has a wife, Jane, that he's so far away from. It's like, well, we don't know that Jane's not here. She might be here, and Tama might have her captive. It's like, he might be the only one that knows where she is. Because we don't know, like, if, like, maybe not everyone. Well, it seemed like mostly everyone got out of that mine situation, but maybe she was someplace else or something. I don't know. It feels like she could be being used as leverage against it, because that never came up in the time we spent with them, but maybe, I mean, Levi and Eve got to somewhat know Virgil, but even they don't really know him. So, and suppose Levi's not here, so not unless that's something Levi learned, and just obviously him not being here doesn't present the opportunity for that information to find its way to him. But the question, that's where I feel like, because that's the only reason I could definitely see him wanting to work for Talmot. Considers like, what other reason would there be? It doesn't seem like there's like a psychological kind of Stockholm syndrome thing, kind of like the whole Veronica, Lily, and Aaron thing. It doesn't seem like that. But the fact is he had the symbol on that cloth and he threw it away. So it's like, right, is that what Wyatt saw? And that's why he drew that symbol, because it's like, right, why not just write Wyatt's name? Or it could just be like after he killed Wyatt, he had Wyatt draw that symbol because he might be trying to put it on Talmot, but he did it for his own reasons or something like that. There's a multitude, there's at least, those are the two ways I could see it. Either, once again, he did it for Talmot, or because Talmot has someone important to him, or he did it himself and he's just framing Talmot. We'll have to wait and see where things kind of go on that front. But I'm like, why? What's your deal, Virgil? It's also interesting too, like every Virgil you kind of come across in these fictions kind of end up being a little crazy. Virgil from The Walking Dead, first introduced to him, a little crazy. Virgil from Devil May Cry, crazy. I mean, let's not pretend like Dante's the most sane person either, in just the way he goes about his life. So it's like, yeah, those twins are kind of like get out of pocket sometimes. Either way, so it's just kind of interesting to me. So there's that angle to it. And as I was bringing up before, the aftermath of everything of like, cool, the clearing found out because of Josh. It didn't just stay with Ty and Lucas and Scott. Like, eventually it's like, right, we do have to tell everyone else like what's going on. So it's like, yeah, I kind of had no choice to tell people, because they had questions about, hey, there was it was raining fish from the sky, and they're almost like, what? It's like, it had to be there. But yeah, in the aftermath of everything, the clearing squad is not too happy with our main squad making, once again, unilateral decisions without involving them. So it's like, cool. Like Sam wanted to talk to some people. It's like, yeah, that's why Scott and Lucas did that, because they earned everyone's trust. You guys have kind of burnt that bridge doing your own thing. So that's an issue now. Didn't play as much of an issue in the episode, but I'm sure that's going to become even more of an issue later on as that trust kind of wanes more and more, but we'll see. Eve is, well, we picked up with Izzy and Gavin still in the tower, and in the aftermath of the virus, it might not have finished, but it did enough substantial damage that they're going to have to kind of try and fix what was broken. But it's like, right, if I could get access to a Dr. Moore, I'll be able to kind of fully fix the time machine, the time aspect of it, and no more sinkholes, and it could all be, I can help you save your wife. Like, everything's going to be like, what we set out to be. But it's like, yeah, but Mom, Caroline, isn't too keen on you. It's like, yeah, but she at one point in time was all about this research as well. Like, she was about this cause, so it's still in there right now, even though she might have her issues with me. Because she was in, like, the 80s for a couple years, so a lot has changed. But I think Caroline has every right to kind of be suspicious. I think James is probably gotten even more. It's that thing of when you were kind of worshipped and looked upon the way he is, and it was probably already pretty bad before she left, and now that she's been going all these years, I'm sure that hold he has on so many people, in his mind, he probably thinks even more so, like, no, I'm right. Like, he has no one to question him, because even when people were around to question him, he didn't listen, and I'm sure he went unchecked for so long. I'm sure, I don't know, we know Gavin's grandfather probably leaned more towards siding with Caroline in that regard, considering he considered the tower so dangerous and all that. So you would think. So obviously not everyone agreed with him. So I just think it is interesting that the people who don't agree with him weren't in the tower, and are kind of. So I think that kind of may speak volumes. What I mean by that is, like, it's just everyone that kind of seems like they might not agree with him, or people outside of the tower. It seems like everyone that's on his side is still in the tower, and I think that's kind of what I mean. But yeah, James can't be trusted, so Eve is right to have her hesitancy. But for Gavin, it's just simply like, yeah, saving the woman I love, saving the mother of my children, that's what matters most. So I might have my reservations about him, but he's willing to help, and even Caroline's not fully against it. Like, she does not think James can be trusted, but looking at Moore's research, it does seem like it is a plausible answer, Sadly, they do find Dr. Moore, but he's dead. To be fair, James is like, yeah, he died a year ago. But the problem is, well, the body is nothing but bones. So he could have been murdered like a year ago. And the fact is that James is hoping that they could investigate it, and maybe because Caroline and Dr. Moore, because Dr. Moore worked with Caroline, so she'd be able to probably figure something out. So they're probably hoping things would play out this way. Either like he just straight up died just because he was out on his own, or they killed him, and now it's just like, right, we need Caroline to lead us to the rest of his research, which they did find, but Riley and Caroline are keeping that quiet, because it's like, right, we don't know until Caroline can figure all of this out, whether or not this is all true or not, especially because Gavin said that line of, hey, I know you weren't able to be there for me as a kid, but you're here now, and that's what matters. So please, I need your help. So she wants to help out, but she also doesn't trust James. So keeping that hush-hush, and sadly Riley has to keep that from Josh as well, and also everyone, because this plan is supposed to be like, it matters a lot to Riley, because seeing her dad last episode like that scared her, because it's like, right, her dad has always been someone who could always find a way through a situation, and because he hasn't been able to, this is a situation like you're constantly banging your head against a wall trying to figure it out. Like they're like, how do you deal with time travel? Like, how do you really like? That's not an like, yeah, you're maybe a Navy SEAL, but you're trained for not every, but typically normal, manageable situations. You're not trained to deal with being time travel to 10,000 BC and then 1988 to save your daughter, and then coming back to 10,000 BC, potentially being stuck there for the rest of your life. And then there's also the whole aspect of, oh, like you wanted to get back to your time frame, which even he's like, cool, I did everything I did last episode, and it kind of made me scared how much I was wilding out. But I am relieved to know that someone else ended up kind of agreeing with me, like, we need to kind of keep this open. Once again, everyone's kind of got their selfish reasons for it and stuff like that, but it is, in the grand scheme of things, also about, hey, we're doing this for our selfish reasons, but it is also about getting everyone else back to their homes as well. So Eve, I thought, was kind of an interesting aspect to her. This episode was her trying to pretend like everything was fine. She didn't want to talk about it. She didn't really want to believe it. I mean, Gavin's visions hadn't led them astray, which I think is an interesting parallel because Eve is like, right, this could be a manipulation. You don't know, like, your dad could be lying to you. That could just be, like, all on you, which is interesting considering you made such a point of, like, oh, those visions, everyone thought Gavin was crazy before, and you eventually were like, I'm sorry, I didn't believe you. I mean, that's also something Izzy kind of threw in Josh's face this episode, because Josh wants to help out so much. She's like, maybe we should take it slow. The fact is, I get it. You didn't want to believe in Dad's visions, and you regretted that for so long. And so now it's like, hey, you're trying to make up for it by believing in Dad. And it's like, I get that. I completely understand that, but maybe we should handle this a little differently. Because for Izzy, she feels like every time she's turning around, something's driving her family apart. This vision is that thing too. And so now she's scared of, like, right, no matter what I do, we're finally all together, but it still just feels like her family's so fractured. Like, will we ever get back together? She ended up talking to Ty about this, and I actually thought that conversation was going to lean itself more towards like a man who has a ticking clock. Jeez, I couldn't say that. Who has a ticking clock himself? Obviously, like, his, it's kind of still up in the air. Like, yeah, like, he doesn't have much time, but they don't know the specifics of it. Just like Eve, we know she's going to die, but she doesn't know the specific time, and she knows it's going to be related to she's going to die underneath the plants that those red star-shaped flowers. But circling back, my point was that Josh is by Gavin's side because he wants to believe in his dad, whereas Eve tried to deny everything, but that's also, in her mind, she admits that she's scared. She says that, in this moment, like, she didn't want to hear about it because it is kind of a hard pill to swallow when you're like, oh, cool, there's a vision that says that I'm going to die, considering Gavin's visions have never been wrong. Once again, they have been memories, so that's what makes this situation so unique. I brought that up a lot last episode and the episode before that, but Eve ended up, which I guess we're implying that creature, that, like, bear, whatever, ended up knocking her down there and found another way through the cave, because, like, it knocked her over and also pushed that boulder on her leg, so she got stuck in there with that rabbit, which I was almost hoping she'd bring the rabbit back to the clearing, but when she came back to the clearing, she was on her own, so she probably, like, let the little guy go, because it's like, yeah, if I bring you back to the clearing, there's a good chance you're going to get made into food, so I'm going to let you go here, so luckily got both of them out. It is interesting, too, that the rabbit would end up having, like, a hurt paw, too, so it's an interesting parallel with her messed up leg. But it's like, yeah, we're all going to be on the same page from now on as a family, and by admitting the truth, it's like, yeah, I'm scared, and Gavin's like, I want to work with my dad because he might be the only one that could save you. I would do everything I can to save you, so still a little bit of, obviously, difference of opinion, and kind of puts him a little at odds in that regard, because once again, Gavin is a little too trusting of our boy James. Then you also have Ty, who was talking to Izzy about something I was thinking about. I was like, well, they're from the future, so they probably have treatment for you, especially because they made the whole point of the infirmary last episode. So it's like, yeah, Ty ultimately does visit. And I was like, the way James was talking, I was like, right. He says, like, they found a cure for cancer in the 2060s. So they do, it's like, right, we could reshuffle the deck for you. It's like, cool, but what do you want in return? Even I'm like, yeah, there's a major but coming up of, yeah, I need you to do something for me. I thought it was going to be like, I need you to spy for me. It's like, actually, I need you to be my ears. You told the people at the front that you're a psychiatrist, so I need to talk to somebody. It's like being the man in charge, dealing with everything. It's like, right, being reunited with your son, but things being complicated, your wife, things being complicated, obviously, like, your sudden grandchildren being in front of you too. So it's a lot. Plus, it's like he probably doesn't have many people he can share everything with. I think the woman who works for him that we saw last episode, kind of his right hand person, wasn't her name Kira? Might be. I don't remember off the top of my head. But it seems like, right, when you are kind of the mastermind behind everything, when you're the big plan guy, you don't really have many people you can really trust and confide in, because he probably has trust issues to some extent. So the fact that, and I'm curious to see what ends up happening on that front. The fact is he's confiding so much in Ty, and obviously it's like, oh, patient, doctor-patient confidentiality, which he's kept up to this point in time, but it's like, yeah, it's a little different when James is like the key to the time travel thing, so any information you glean from him, maybe that's also why Ty's doing it, because it's like, cool, I'm gonna use this as an opportunity to get cured, while also finding out everything I can. So maybe that's it, maybe it's not, maybe he just wants to be helpful in that regard, who knows. And then finally, we also have Scott coming clean to Sam about what he did, setting Tom up free to save Lucas. And it's like, oh, please don't tell the others what I did. And it's unclear whether Sam did or not, because like Lucas didn't come to him in this episode, so I don't know. But Sam also says, like, right, you made a hard choice. Like, the fact is, Tom might be free, but the fact is, Lucas is alive. So there's that. And also, what happened isn't on you. Like, oh, Wyatt's dead because of me. It's like, no, Tom's the one that did it. Once again, we don't know if Tom kind of gave that order, persuaded and pushed Wyatt to do it. Not Wyatt, pushed Virgil to do it, or whether Virgil did it on his own. Once again, have to wait and see. But just like they're setting up Lucas, they're also doing the same thing for Scott, where Sam is like, hey, I'm going to need someone to stay here, kind of, if anything kind of goes wrong, needs to kind of lead the charge. Like, I need someone who can make the hard decisions, because Scott's made them. And I think also Sam, having gone through what he recently went through last episode, I think he understands that more so than anybody. I mean, the decisions that they've kind of had to make too, so definitely going to be interesting to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.